Leaders on the hot seat, a debate dodged, and questions about foreign interference. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Going beyond the headlines.
Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
It's day 3 of the election campaign, and both Liberal leader Mark Carney and the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, have some explaining to do. For Mark Carney, he is being taken to task for skipping a leaders' debate, what's known as the TVA debate, the debate focusing only on issues important to voters in Quebec. Mark Carney was asked yesterday morning if he had planned to take part in that debate and said, why not? But by yesterday afternoon, a change of plans, with the Carney campaign saying he wouldn't take part. And because the private broadcaster was asking all the political parties to put up $75,000 to help cover the production costs, that debate has now been canceled. While campaigning in Halifax, Mark Carney was asked about the change of plans.
Well, I said that, why not if we have a debate with all the leaders of the parties? I now realize that the leader of the Greens were not invited. There are 2 leaders of the Green Party, as you know. As well, we have the debates, which I look forward to, overseen by the Electoral Commission in French and in English. The 16th and 17th are the dates. I look forward to those debates, and I'll add that I have spent during my leadership campaign. I spent more time in Quebec than any other province. I'm going there in 2 days. I have engaged on. Je m'occupe sur les grands enjeux pour le Québec en ce qui concerne la culture, la langue française, la gestion de l'offre et plusieurs d'autres enjeux qui sont uniques pour le Québec. Alors, I'm very much out in the open. Je ne cache pas du tout.
Not good enough for the leader of the Bloc Québécois, François Blanchette, who accused Mark Carney of showing a lack of courage.
I will face the guy. And then we say, hey, come in Quebec and discuss with us because you want us to vote for you. Oh, I won't go. And I have the perfect pretext. I say, us, the Liberal Party of Canada, we do not have $75,000. We're so poor. Yeah, I do believe that. So I'm saying to him, hey, let's come and face the music.
Officially, he said that he's not going to participate. He hasn't talked about the money being an issue.
The Liberal Party has said that they don't want to pay the $75,000.
It's not in the official statement, but can I ask you, are you worried that this robs you of an important platform for yourself in an election campaign?
That's the intention of Mr. Carney. I want to rob the Bloc Québécois, which I have refused to acknowledge so far, of a very important stage on which they could force me to reveal something of a program about which I have said nothing so far.
For good measure, Pierre Poilievre said if money is an issue, the Conservatives will gladly pay for Mark Carney's entry fee.
Let's have a debate in French where we put together the choice. Either a 4th Liberal term after costs and crime have gone up and our economy has gone down under the American thumb, or putting Canada first for a change with a new Conservative government that will build the homes. I'll even pay Mr. Carney's fee so that he can show up. We'll take that excuse away from him. Conservatives will even pay the fee to bring him out if he's not afraid. And by the way, if he is afraid to have the debate, how is he going to have the courage to stand up against Donald Trump?
But Mr. Poilievre has a problem of his own, and it's on the front page of the Globe and Mail today. Bob Fife and Steve Chase report for the Globe and Mail today, quote, Indian agents were involved in raising money and organizing within the South Asian community for Mr. Poilievre during the Conservative Party leadership race. That's according to an anonymous source with top secret security clearance. The report goes on to say CSIS didn't share that information with Poilievre because he doesn't have security clearance. Poilievre was campaigning in Vaughan in the GTA. He said he won the leadership by following all the rules and then accused the Liberals of leaking the story.
Let's be honest. I won the leadership fair and square. Even my political competitors, like Mr. Patrick Brown, have publicly testified under oath that that was the case. But I'm glad that the Liberals put this attack out today. Really glad. Because there's something that's really been worrying me. After Justin Trudeau named Mark Carney his economic advisor, giving him massive power over public policy in Canada, Mr. Carney went over for meetings in Beijing where he just had secret talks with the deputy governor of the Chinese Central Bank. 2 weeks later, Brookfield got a $250 million loan. What did they talk about? What did Mr. Carney in his role as Trudeau's economic advisor offer of China? Why would he be having secret meetings with top government-controlled bankers about getting a $250 million loan while he was supposed to be acting in Canada's interest as the Prime Minister's economic advisor?
But this security clearance issue has been following Poilievre around for a long time, going back to when Justin Trudeau was Prime Minister, and it was a big issue on the campaign trail today for Mark Carney.
I find it beyond baffling. I find it downright irresponsible that the leader of the opposition, day after day, month after month, year after year, refuses to obtain his security clearance. As a normal course in peacetime when times were tranquil, that's unacceptable then. But at this point in our history, when we face the greatest threats that we faced in generations, in most of our lifetimes, he has to answer for that.
As for other news and notes from the campaign trail, Sean Fraser making a political comeback. The Nova Scotia cabinet minister, most recently the housing minister, announced he was leaving politics because he wanted to spend more time with his family. But family time is over. He'll be running again in Nova Scotia. The NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, was campaigning in Toronto today, where he said an NDP government would build 100,000 rent-controlled homes over the next decade on Crown land. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
He will be with us throughout the election campaign with his take on all the big issues. Professor Ian Lee is back with us today from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Welcome back. Interesting times, Professor.
Thanks very much, Rob. Very, very interesting times. And this election is timely. But so long as we do get it right, what it is we're even debating and talking about. And I'm not sure we are yet.
Okay. Well, I want to run this by you. It's an idea that is certainly out there, that this could be an election campaign that has two phases to it, that there's pre-April 2nd and then there's post-April 2nd, because April 2nd is when Donald Trump has promised to impose reciprocal tariffs. He has called it Liberation Day. But he has said recently there could be breaks for some countries. So what do you think could happen April 2nd, and how do you think could impact the election campaign?
Well, I think you're right. This is a moving target because he changes his views. I think he's changing his views because he's getting more fresh information. I don't think it's erratic and irrational and just, grabbing straws out of thin air. His advisors, and there's some very smart people around him, are giving him advice and feedback and studies they're doing, and that's causing him to make policy on the fly, so to speak, on the run. But it is based, I think, on information he's getting, updated information from companies, for example, from the Chamber of Commerce and that sort of thing. So, yes, we should be looking at this pre-April 1, post-April 1, or April 2, actually, because I've also argued that where I think a lot of people are getting it wrong in Canada, and I'm only talking Canada because I'm Canadian and we're in Canada, so I'm not going to talk about the other countries of the world. I'm not following them. Well, a lot of us are getting it wrong because we're paying too much attention to his bark rather than the bite. Great cliche from the English language, the bark and the bite. His bark is much more savage and draconian than his bite. The bite, these are not buzzwords. The bite, to me, is the actual legal instruments passed called executive orders. because an executive order of the president it's legally binding, whereas a speech or a off-the-cuff comment in a press conference or in the White House or a tweet is not legally binding. It is not the law of the land. And many people in Canada are getting all twisted into their knots because they're focusing exclusively on the tweets and the speeches and the comments instead of focusing like a laser beam on the actual decision that got expressed as a legal order in council. Where I'm going with this is I think that what we've seen the record is showing that when he finally gets down to issuing that various executive orders, they're nowhere near as tough or strong or as demanding or as draconian as they were as he was claiming he was going to do. So that's why it's so important to distinguish between the bark versus the bite. And the bite is much more critical because that's what's going to affect us as Canadians. The actual tariffs that are imposed by an order, by an executive order, on April the 2nd. I think it's not going to be as draconian. There's some new information out literally just a few minutes ago. Very nice analysis by Forbes magazine, saying that they're looking at dialing back some of the tariffs and giving exemptions to certain industries, and so it's not yet clear what is going to happen on April 2 vis-a-vis Canada.
Right. But, you can almost expect Trump to kind of renew things like, well, we're being ripped off. All these things that you hear from Donald Trump. We're being ripped off. We're subsidizing Canada to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars a year. Well, that's okay if they're a state. Maybe they should be a state, all this stuff that you hear from him. So it just makes me wonder, okay, April 2nd arrives, and maybe more industries are facing tariffs. Maybe there's carve-outs or breaks for some industries, whatever the case might be. But it's about the rhetoric that gets amped up from the White House, and then the reaction during an election campaign from all the political leaders, whether there could be this sort of renewed wrapping ourselves in the flag that will, again, become an even bigger part of this election campaign. What do you think?
Which is why I've been so consistent for the last several months, arguing that we have made an enormous mistake in Canada. I'm talking the Liberal government in Ottawa and Premier Ford in Ontario, the Conservative government, by going down the road of insults, ad hominem attacks. The man's an idiot. The man's a jerk. The Americans should never have elected him, as Mr. Trudeau said. This is a mistake. I believe it's a catastrophic mistake, an existential catastrophic mistake. What we've got to do is lower the temperature and not jump and respond. And this is clickbait, the equivalent of clickbait. And so our leaders run around and, tearing out their hair and setting their hair on fire instead of cooling the rhetoric, backing off, don't respond to every claim. And that's why, the argument is emerging right now that the Liberals, I'm not here as a partisan, I don't belong to any political party, I don't donate money, and I have no lawn signs whatsoever. But I don't buy the argument.
No lawn signs. Okay. No lawn signs. Okay.
I have no lawn signs whatsoever. I don't allow them in any election, federal, provincial, or municipal.
Right. Okay.
So what I'm saying is, the argument is that they're going to be better at this, but they were the ones, the Liberal government was the ones that was doing all this name calling left, right, and center for the last 3 months, 6 months. In fact, they're still doing it, albeit at a lower level. That's not
Maple
the way
syrup
to go.
MAGA. Okay.
Because all it does is annoy him.
Yeah. Okay. When we come back, we were told the ballot question is who can best deal with Trump, but do you really think it matters to Trump who the next Canadian Prime Minister is? Well, we're going to ask Professor Ian Lee about that. When we come back, I'm Rob Snow here with Professor Ian Lee. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Back with Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business here with his weekly take on the big issues of the day. The election campaign is the big issue of the day. And we're also told the ballot question is who can best deal with Trump? Who do we want going down there doing business with Donald Trump? But do you think it matters to Donald Trump who the Canadian Prime Minister is? Would it be different if it's Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre? What do you think?
I do. I do think it's different.
You do?
Because,
okay.
And I would not normally say that about any president, but Donald Trump is a very personal kind of a guy. He's not a policy wonk that sits around and reads files. I sit around and read studies all the time. That's what I do. No kidding, endlessly. He's the antithesis of that. He's a very hands-on, slap people on the backs kind of a guy. Personal relationships are key to Donald Trump. And we saw his relationship with Pierre Trudeau was just to Justin Trudeau.
Justin Trudeau, yeah.
was just toxic on steroids. I mean, toxic. I've never seen a relationship so bad in my lifetime between any American president and any Canadian prime minister of either party, of a Democrat or Republican, Liberal or Conservative. And so with him, personal relationships are really important. It's for this reason that I really do believe that Poilievre will be a better person to deal with Trump, because he will. I'm not saying he's going to be a walkover, not at all. I'm not saying that Trump is just going to say, okay, that's it, I'm just changing everything I've said. What I'm saying is he's got to be in his bonnet. He's got a deep, deep thing in his bonnet about A, Trudeau, and B, liberalism. He says it all the time. He goes after the progressives and the DEI and all that stuff. And so, the Liberal Party hasn't changed its spots. It's still the Liberal Party of Canada. Yes, Carney is a far more cerebral and intelligent guy than Justin Trudeau. And I'm not saying that to put down Justin Trudeau, but to suggest that they were equivalent is nonsense. They're not. Carney is far more educated, far more intelligent, far more knowledgeable, far more experienced. That doesn't mean that he doesn't have any baggage with Trump. He's still carrying the baggage of the Liberal Party of Canada. And I think Trump is like an elephant. The famous cliche, the elephant never forgets. He's not going to forget all of those insults that were thrown at him nonstop by Freeland, and who's still in the cabinet, and the other ministers who are all throwing insults nonstop. They're not going to forget that. He's not going to forget that. So from my point of view as one Canadian, I would rather see Pierre Poilievre negotiating with him, because Poilievre, we know, is not going to insult him, and he's not going to antagonize him and alienate him, as the Liberals have done so successfully, unfortunately, because it's hurt us.
Okay. What do you think about what Premier Smith has been doing these interviews with what she perceives to be media outlets that are kind of tapped into what I would call the MAGA sphere, because she's accused of being basically a sellout to Canada, even election interference, foreign interference. What do you think about that?
At all. Having said
you don't
that,
buy that, okay?
It was a political mistake on her part, because it just fed gasoline to the critics, who are saying exactly what they're saying, that she's a vendu, which is nonsense. She's as Canadian as anyone else in this country, and everybody has free speech. I'm always stunned. In fact, they're using it lately, and they did it during the truckers' convoy. We need unity. If you don't agree with us, you're a very bad person. Trudeau said so. He said, you're a racist, you're a homophobe. They're starting to do that in slightly gentler language. I've seen in the last 5 days, they're talking about we need unity. I saw them on Vashi Capello's last night and Charles Sousa was saying we need unity. That's code talk for saying you cannot criticize the Liberal government's policy.
Right.
And they're trying to use this idea that if you disagree, you're divisive, and if you're divisive, you are anti-Canadian and you're a traitor. This is demagogic in the extreme.
Gotcha. Got to wrap it up there. That's our time. Thank you so much. We'll see what the next week looks like. Should be an interesting one. Yes. Professor Ian Lee, Associate Professor at the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio, the Newsday panel.
And the gang's all here to talk about some of the big stories making news on day 3 of the federal election campaign. Neil Brody, longtime Conservative strategist. Hi, Neil.
Good afternoon, Rob.
Yeah, great to hear from you today, along with Ashton Arsenault, partner at Crestview Strategy. Hello, Ashton. Welcome back.
How are you, Rob?
I'm good. Great to hear from you. Well, let's start with this report in today's Globe and Mail. It's Bob Fife and Steve Chase with the byline, quote, Indian agents were involved in raising money and organizing within the South Asian community for Mr. Poilievre during the Conservative Party leadership race. Now, the Liberals have been using Pierre Poilievre's lack of security clearance against him for months. They've somehow managed to turn this issue of foreign interference into what I would call a sword issue for them, instead of what used to be for them, I think, a shield issue. And I think back to the appointment of, the former Governor General as special rapporteur and whatnot. How did that happen, and how damaging is a story like this to the Conservative Party's election campaign? Neil Brody.
Well, listen, it's quite evident that the Liberal Party leak machine is in overdrive trying to manage the first issue of the Carney campaign. We may talk about it later, who knows, but Mr. Carney came out yesterday and said he doesn't want to speak French at some point in the campaign. So this is a nice way to change the channel. Listen, I don't think it's shifting many votes, Rob. This has been in the news before, and most people have internalized the issue. What I think it is it shows what a lazy effort by CSIS and other security agencies to notify a party regarding potential political foreign interference in the democratic process. What I read in the article, it sounds like the Conservative Party found out today that this was something. I read it in the newspaper, which is always nice. And also in the newspaper, I saw that there's no evidence that the party was aware that this was going on from the person who leaked this. It's nice that Mr. Carney's picked up on this issue. It's nice that he's talking about it. I understand that most of the pressers this morning with the party leaders was talking about this. But I don't think it's a channel changer in terms.
Not a channel changer. Okay, all right. Well, let's listen to what Mark Carney had to say. Obviously, he was asked about this at his campaign stop in Halifax, Nova Scotia today. This was Mark Carney on the foreign interference security clearance issue. Go ahead, Dave.
I find it beyond baffling. I find it downright irresponsible that the leader of the opposition, day after day, month after month, year after year, refuses to obtain his security clearance. As a normal course in peacetime when times were tranquil, that's unacceptable then. But at this point in our history, when we face the greatest threats that we faced in generations in most of our lifetimes, he has to answer for that.
So obviously, smelling blood in the water, and in Carney style, that's what amounts to going in for the kill. What do you think about that? What do you think about this, though, Ashton? I mean, is it damaging to the election campaign, the election fortunes of the Conservative Party?
So Neil is largely right. I mean, that story is about 95% rehash, and I think if anything, it actually makes CSIS look pretty terrible. But let's take the Globe story at face value. So, here's a quote from the story. CSIS also did not have evidence that Mr. Poilievre or members of his inner circle were aware of the alleged allegations. Not only was this also explored extensively during the Hogue Commission, but an opponent in the very leadership race that Pierre Poilievre won went on to say, quote, "I don't believe foreign intervention affected the final outcome of the Conservative leadership race," end quote. So I think, to his credit, Mr. Poilievre and frankly his entire team have been pretty clear on this issue since it first surfaced. If government officials believe they have information Mr. Poilievre needs to know, they can brief him under Section 12.1 of the CSIS Act. That is an option that exists to this day. Now, I don't think Mr. Carney's government wants to do this because they want to tightly control what they are providing to the leader of the opposition, and they want to remove his ability to speak out following a briefing. It's that simple. They can brief him if they want. Instead, they are choosing to play politics on foreign interference.
Or, maybe they tightly control the information that they're leaking to the media.
Yeah, look,
this is not the first time something like this has happened when it comes to, for issues of foreign interference and foreign influence on Canadian politicians. This, similar information has been leaked not even to Canadian outlets, but to newspapers like the Washington Post, for crying out loud.
Well, it's unfortunate that it boils down to a he said, she said, but I mean, legal scholars and individuals that have otherwise fed into the legislation have all agreed that should Mr. Poilievre be in a position to receive a briefing from the government can authorize him to receive that briefing. They haven't. Okay. There's a reason why, and Poilievre is saying the same thing.
But let me ask you this, Neil and Ashton, very quickly. Was it a mistake for Poilievre not to get that clearance and, say, read the NSICOP report way back when on this? Was that a mistake for him not to do that as the other party leaders did? Was that a mistake, Neil?
Well, we talked about this many months ago.
Many months ago, yeah.
Rob. There was nothing preventing Mr. Polyev from getting the security clearance. There was nothing preventing Mr. Polyev from reading whatever material is there. And then there really was nothing stopping Mr. Polyev from immediately going to the nearest microphone and telling Canadians what was contained in the files of CSIS so that all Canadians can understand. This is a big public security issue. The public deserves a right to know. It's not just for Mr. Polyev or Mr. Trudeau or Mr. Carney to know this. All Canadians need to know this. Mr. Polyev could have gone to a microphone immediately, told Canadians what's going on, and then dare Mr. Trudeau and the security services to come after him. And nobody would have.
Ashton?
Yeah, I think at best it's a channel changer. It's an issue that's been litigated ad nauseum for many months at this point. I'll let my original comment stand. If they want to give Mr. Polyev a briefing, they can.
Okay. When we come back, Mark Carney on the hot seat because he is not going to attend, the most watched debate in Quebec, the TVA face à face debate. We'll talk about that when we come back. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's our Newsday panel.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Back with longtime Conservative strategist Neil Brody. Ashton Arsenault here as well. Partner at Crestview Strategy is our Newsday panel. So yesterday morning, Mark Carney was asked, will you participate in the TVA leaders debate? And he said, why not? Why not? And then in the afternoon, it was revealed, actually, I won't be attending that debate. Face à face, which is the most popular debate that there is in French. It's bigger than the debate that's put on by the Debate Commission. It deals directly with Quebec issues, whereas the Debate Commission's French language debate deals with more national issues. Plus, the format is the most entertaining of them all. But a lot of Quebecers would watch this, and he's not going to be there. Well, actually, there's not even going to be a debate because now it's been canceled. But what do you think of the decision? He's the only leader who said no. Neil, what do you think of that?
Well, currently the Liberals are polling around, I think, 35% in Quebec, and that's the highest it's been in a couple of years. And, of course, they've seen the same rise in popularity since Mr. Trudeau stepped down, as the Liberals have seen in other parts of the country. So it's a shrewd political calculation by Mr. Carney's team to shield the candidate from the harm of disastrous French language debate. Time will tell if Quebecers will punish Mr. Carney for that. And it also gives Mr. Carney more time to practice his French before I think it's an April 16th debate in French that's put on, as you said, by the commission, commission, which is only 10 days before the election. More people vote before election day than on election day. So the debates happen after people have voted. It's a pretty good political decision. I'll note that Mr. Carney today, I think, said that the reason he's not going is because Elizabeth May was not invited. That's pretty weak.
Well, yeah, we have the clip. Let's listen. Actually,
right
yeah. We just happen to have it just ready to go, just for you guys. Roll the tape, Dave.
Well, I said that. Why not? If we have a debate with all the leaders of the parties. I now realize that the leader of the Greens were not invited. There are two leaders of the Green Party, as you know. As well, we have the debates, which I look forward to, overseen by the Electoral Commission.
Okay, that's enough.
In French.
Well, I'm thinking if both leaders of the Green Party aren't there, I can't be there. I don't know if that's that's Sting Gruel to me. What do you think, Ashton? What do you think about this decision? I'm not going, so it's canceled.
Yeah. I mean, Neil's right. It's a pretty well-known fact at this point that Mark Carney does not have a great command of the French language. And to his initial response yesterday morning, he didn't just say, why not? He also kind of attempted to sound like a tough guy by sarcastically saying that, I'm so afraid of facing Pierre, only, of course, to pull out later in the day, right? So I actually have a question as to whether or not he even understood the question he was originally asked. And I think those in Quebec should have their eyebrows raised about whether or not Mr. Carney is actually committed to speaking French at all. But to the point on, this morning, nobody is buying that Carney doesn't want to do the debate because the Green Party wasn't invited. It's garbage. So it's one of two things. He's either dramatically trying to limit how often he needs to speak French against his rather fluent main competitor, or he's simply trying to limit how much he needs to debate Poilievre altogether. One of two reasons.
Okay. So this developed this afternoon. David caught this. This is really interesting. I'm just kind of throwing this at you. Pierre Poilievre was asked today, I was inevitable that this would come up. Well, what about all of these programs? Pharmacare, dental care, child care. How safe are these programs if the Conservatives win power? And he said they're all safe. This is interesting. Let's listen to this.
We will protect these programs, and no one who has them will lose them. And, I would note, let's go through them one at a time. We will make sure that nobody loses their dental care. We will also, on child care, we all believe that there should be more affordable child care in this country. The Liberals, though, have imposed a massive top-down bureaucratic system that has actually meant 120,000 fewer kids have daycare spaces than when they first created the program.
That's about all the time we have. But he said, look, anybody who has these programs will not lose them. Were you caught off guard by that? What do you think of that, Ashton?
No, it's really smart. It's great politics.
Okay.
I think, we can parse the language a little bit there and, start to wonder, okay, does that mean there isn't going to be a dramatic expansion? Are the Liberals going to try to follow this up and say they're going to try to dramatically expand these programs? Because he's been pretty on the nose there, right? Anybody who's currently accessing the programs isn't going to lose them. That's a very firm commitment that is going to be very, very difficult to walk back. So I'm going to take Mr. Poilievre at his word on that one. I think it's very shrewd in terms of political gamesmanship.
Neil?
Listen, he has to say that. I can't see anybody rolling those programs back from any political stripe. But I will remind your listeners that the Liberal promise was $10 a day daycare across Canada. And maybe, Rob, you can do an informal poll to find out how many of your listeners get $10 a day daycare.
Yeah, maybe someday we'll get to that. Okay. All right. Look, we have to, when we come back, we're going to talk about what is going on with the NDP. I mean, there's a lot of talk about the surging Liberals and the decline in support for the Conservatives, but the NDP is looking at a total collapse. It is staring at the worst election outcome in its history. We'll discuss it when we come back.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
With Ashton Arsenault and Neil Brody, Newsday panel. Let me run these numbers down for you for the New Democrats. Leger, 6% for the New Democrats. Main Street, 7%. Angus Reid, 7%. Palace, 8%. Liaison, 9%. Only Nano showing them with kind of any life at 14% in the polls. How much of if the Liberals are indeed now ahead in this race, how much of that is because of the collapse of the NDP? Ashton?
Yeah, it's no question the Liberals are benefiting heavily from the NDP party that seems to have no direction, no leadership, no fight, and quite frankly, nothing to bring to the table. They've lost about 16, 17, 15, depending on what poll you're looking at, points over the last 5 weeks. They've been outflanked on the left. Their campaigning skills are garbage. And about half of those who voted for them in 2021 are now saying they won't anymore. Most of it's going to the Liberal Party. There's no question.
Okay. Neil?
I 100% agree with Ashton on all of those things. I would say that it's funny. The Conservative Party spent the better part of 2006 to 2015 time in government trying to kill the Liberal Party and push the Liberal Party supporters to choose between the Conservative Party and the NDP, which in the calculation the Conservative Party would benefit the Conservative Party. And it appears either purposely or by accident, the Liberals spent their decade in government killing the NDP, forcing the NDP supporters to choose between the Liberals and the CPC. And you see the benefit that they're getting right now. Regarding the current electoral campaign, What it really does is reduce the natural vote splitting on the left. So where
Right.
Conservatives used to benefit from Liberals and NDP, arguing over the same voter, there'll be less of that. And I would point out specifically Mr. Carney's riding, the Ottawa area riding of Nepean. They kicked out a rather popular Liberal candidate to parachute Mr. Carney into that riding. So Mr. Carney will actually be running there against an independent and the NDP. So let's see if this eventually bites Mr. Carney in the backside and reduces the pure support for him in that riding and allows the Conservative candidate to come up the middle and grab the riding.
How big, Neil, is this Boilermakers endorsement for Poilievre? 60,000 members in that union.
Listen, I would hope that Mr. Poilievre has taken a page out of Doug Ford's book by getting all of the private sector unions on side. If this is the first of a number of communication events rolled out about private sector unions supporting the Conservatives, this is nothing but good stuff for him.
Yeah. You agree with that, Ashton, I gather, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely taken a page from Doug Ford land, and I think the last time I checked, that was 3 straight majorities.
Okay, we'll wrap it up and see what the next week brings. Thank you so much for the time today. Great to hear from you.
Thanks
a lot, Rob. Have a good day, Ashton.
Yeah, that's Ashton Arsenal. He's a partner at Crestview Strategy. Neil Brody, longtime Conservative strategist, spent some time in the Harper PMO. I'm Rob Snow. Talkback is coming up right after the news at the top of the hour.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day, and we're talking about the federal election campaign again today. It's the biggest story in the country. The federal election campaign, nothing even comes close. So here are the main questions for today. Why are the Liberals winning? And why are the Conservatives losing? If that is indeed the case, and many of the polling firms, not all of the polling firms, most of the polling firms, say that is the state of the race right now. The Liberals are winning, and the Conservatives are losing. So if that's the case, why do you think that is the case? Why is that happening? How have the Liberals managed to mount this historic political comeback, and how have the Conservatives managed to blow a 25-point lead in just a few months? How has this happened? Why has this happened? We want your take. We want your explanation. We want your thoughts on why you think things are the way they are right now. The call-in line is 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Why are the Liberals winning? And why are the Conservatives losing? 1-833-668-2577. Look, that would appear to be the state of the race right now. Maybe you love to hear that. Maybe you don't love to hear that. Yeah, it's early. I mean, the election campaign's only 3 days old. But the thing is, it's a short campaign. 36 days. It's a sprint. It's not a marathon. And if things go south for any political party, for any particular reason, you lose a few days. You lose an entire week with the wrong messaging or a snafu, a gaffe. I mean, there's not a lot of time to recover. So look, to make the kind of drive the case home here, let's look at where things stand today, according to the major polling firms in this country. Here we are. What is it? The 25th day of March. Okay, 2025, Election Day, April 28th, 34 days to go. Angus Reid has the Liberals up by 8. Liberals 46, Conservatives 38, NDP 7. Palace Data, Liberals by 4. Liberals 42, Conservatives 38, NDP at 8. Liaison Strategies, Liberals by 4. Liberals 40, Conservatives 36, NDP 9. Main Street Research, Liberals by 6. Liberals 44, Conservatives 38, NDP 7. Leger, Liberals by 6. Liberals 44, Conservatives 38, NDP 6. 6%. Now, there are some polling firms that have the Conservatives in the lead, but those polling firms, few and far between. Abacus says it's the Conservatives by 3. Conservatives 39, Liberals 36, NDP at 12. And Nanos has the Conservatives by 3, Conservatives 37, Liberals 34, NDP 14. So that's the state of the race. That is the state of the race today. Now, snapshots in time, okay? Race may have looked different 2 weeks ago than it looks today, than it will look 2 weeks from now. But I would remind you again, the last two elections, 2021, 2019, the Liberals managed to form minority government with barely 33% of the vote. So even if some of these polls have the Conservatives ahead by just a little bit, there is probably great concern in the Conservative war room right now to see the Liberals, even if they're in second place, but still polling 34 to 37%, because if the last two elections are any indication of how things could play out on election night, right now the most likely outcome would be a liberal government of one form or another. This is not how Canadian politics looked just a few months ago, but it's how Canadian politics looks today. The Liberals are winning and the Conservatives are losing. So our questions are pretty straightforward. Why is it happening? What's your best guess? What's your explanation? 1-833-668-2577. That's the call-in line to Talkback. If you never called before, just mention that to our call screener. We will make your call a priority. Have time to take a call right now. As a matter of fact, it's Steve in Kitchener, Ontario. Hello, Steve.
How you doing?
I'm good, Steve. Why are the Liberals winning and the Conservatives are losing?
Well, I think, first of all, we need to stop referring back to that like it's a fact, because I highly doubt that it's accurate. I think.
Okay. Why do you doubt that?
Reliable. What's that?
Why do you doubt it?
I highly doubt it. And I'll just push back to the American election, where the media and all the pollsters did the exact same thing. And then come election night, lo and behold, Trump won by a landslide. Huh. That's weird. I don't know how the polls were so wrong. And I have a feeling it's the exact same thing today. And I think there's extreme bias with these polling agencies, despite their insistence there is none. We'll just have to wait for election day, but I don't believe for a second.
But how can it be biased, though? How can it be biased to either do an online panel or say call 1,000 people and say, if the election was today, who would you vote for? How is that a biased question?
Well, because you're basing it on the assumption that they're actually calling these people and they're not just propping up fake data, right? I mean, like, who actually sits there and listens to all the thousands of people that they call to generate this data? Nobody. They just invent a number and they are all competitive.
They invent a number. So you don't believe the polls?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
Like, I don't.
Not even the polls that would suggest the Conservatives are in the lead? You believe those polls?
Based on my interactions with the general public, based on my interactions with social media, based on my interactions just on the whole, even with people in my family who are devout liberals, I have a hard time believing that. You look at the state of the country, and if we actually do get a liberal government again, then Canadians get everything they deserve.
Okay.
That's as easy as I can put it.
All right. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I thought that would be a kind of a common answer, that you just don't believe it, that it doesn't coincide with what you're seeing in real life on the street in your everyday interactions. Fair enough? Fair enough. Okay. We'll stop here, but we are underway. It's Talkback. There's a free line for you, 1-833-668-2577. Despite what that caller said, these polls are pretty much all singing the same tune. And here on March 25th, it's the Liberals in the lead. The Liberals are winning and the Conservatives are losing. What's going on? Give me your thoughts on it.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about the election campaign again today. Most of the polls say the Liberals are winning, the Conservatives are losing. We're asking why. If that's the state of the race now, why is that the state of the race? Michael in Cape Breton up next. Hi, Michael.
How you doing today?
Good, Michael. All wrapped up in it.
You're dealing with the liberal and Tory virus. If they never changed after over 150 years,
right,
they're not going to change today. There's no difference between Twiddly-Dee and Twiddly-Dum. If you remember, when Brian Mulroney formed his last majority government, he said to the Canadian taxpayers on CBC, now you know we're going to have to give up some of our sovereignty. But
you're not answering the question. You're not answering that. I'm asking a very basic question. I want to stay focused on this question. If you're not going to answer the question, I'm just going to move along. The polls are saying the Liberals are winning, the Conservatives are losing. Do you have an explanation for that? And the party that you support, by the way, the support is in the tank. Okay. If that's going to be your answer, it's not. Yeah, that's no answer at all. Let's go to Tim in Nova Scotia. Tim, you're on the air. Tim.
Hey, Rob. How's it going?
Hi, Tim. I'm good. Tim, go ahead. Yep.
I tend to lean towards the caller I heard a couple callers ago that he doesn't trust the polls. What's stopping them from doing targeting polls? Like I could know that there's a liberal stronghold, and that's where I focus my polling at, or et cetera. Like I don't understand why everybody's swung. There's this big swing because the Liberals only dropped the carbon tax because it made them grossly unpopular.
Right.
As well as and this new guy Carney wants to keep ramping up immigration. Like it's just destroying the country. As far as that goes, I don't trust any politician. I just want a change because the Liberals, like I said,
I appreciate that. So yours, but again, you're coming back to this. I don't trust the polls, right? I don't trust the polls. So why would a firm like Leger, that has a reputation, a corporate reputation to protect, as publishing accurate public opinion research on politics or a whole host of other issues, or Ipsos or Nanos or Abacus, like this is their business. We poll people. We do public opinion research. We want to find out what people think about this, that, the other thing. Today, it's politics. Why would they want to juice their results one way or the other? Because they'd be sacrificing their reputation. They'd be putting their reputation at risk. Why would they want to do that?
But is it really putting their reputation at risk if they're targeting where they're at? The polls are genuine. And just to be clear, I don't trust any politician, and there's no political accountability, and we need to get that back. You've seen it in mainstream media, like Mark Carney, the Newfoundland thing that just came up. He went there and locked people out.
The Fishers, yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
you know what I mean. This stuff going on, and then you look at the rallies at Poilievre's, which I don't believe. Maybe it's not as big as they say it is either, because a picture tells 1,000 words, but if it's an skewed picture, is it really telling the truth?
Right. Okay. So again, your own impressions about kind of what's going on the ground. Like you see this long lineup in the Toronto area to get into a Poilievre rally, and then a poll comes out and it shows the Conservatives are losing in Ontario, and they're not going to do very well in Toronto. And you're kind of like, well, what's going on? What's reality? Right? You're questioning it.
Then you got to look at the reality. Didn't they just vote in a Conservative government?
A progressive Conservative government. Yeah, a progressive Conservative government.
Didn't they really just re-elect Doug Ford?
They did. Yeah, he called a snap election as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another thing that leads me to believe that maybe these polls aren't as truthful and upfront as they say they are.
All right. Or as accurate. Okay, fair enough. All right, thank you. Be right back after the news. Hot one today. Steve in Calgary. You're up next, Steve. What do you think is going on, Steve?
Wait a second. Didn't you bring on Leger for the U.S. election? And how well did they do on their prediction? Do you remember? Because I sure as heck do. Tell me.
Oh, you do? Because I don't.
The U.S. election.
But
really?
I don't know if I had Leger on. I don't believe I ever had Leger on to talk about the U.S. election.
Well, you brought somebody on, and almost everyone on the Sunday shows in the U.S. said it was too close to call. I said, no, he'd win by a significant margin. But here's the thing. You cannot compare the U.S. with Canada, and here's why. Do you remember a couple election cycles ago where Trudeau had a few problems? One had to do with that lady lawyer and SNC Lavalin and taking trips that were paid for by other people. vacation trips. None of that matters because it's paper, scissors, rock. Ontario has more seats than all Western Canada. Ontario and Quebec have more seats than 8 provinces. So it really comes down to this one factor, and that is whatever Trudeau shenanigans was, they hate that less than they do the federal Conservatives. So if they have a reasonable candidate, which is Mark, the new guy,
Mark Carney,
that will override everything that they disliked about the Trudeau era. And so right now, the nod, in my mind, has to go to the Liberals. I'm not saying that's how I want it to go. I'm just saying that's where my nod is. Now, how you ask the question and they respond is also another thing. I'll finish with this. I want to know where the Tories are on OAS, because the Liberals are saying they're going to raise it. Well, Stephen Harper said that in the 2012 budget. And so they have 2 responses. One is they're not going to answer. That means they're entertaining the idea and it could happen, or they have to come up with an emphatic no. But when the Liberals say, as in Chrétien, I'm going to get rid of the GST, or Trudeau in the 74 general election, there will be no wage and price controls. Don't believe anything the Liberals say. But the Tories have a habit of being too honest. So if they don't answer on OAS, it means they're entertaining the idea of raising it. Anyways, my thoughts.
Okay, Steve. All right. I don't know if I ever really got a straight answer out of you, but that's okay. Peter in Calgary up next. Peter, you're on the air, Peter.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, Peter.
Awesome. Good.
Okay.
So I have a couple of thoughts here. First of all, polling companies, you say they're a business. So who funds these businesses? I don't know. I haven't looked into who their financial backers are.
Well, they're hired. They're hired. Sometimes they're hired by private corporations. Sometimes they're hired by governments to do public opinion research.
And so that would raise some questions as to who's hiring all of these pollsters right now, with what money to come up with the polls that they're coming in. Are they supplied with lists? Let's say we had a leadership election with the Liberal Party here just recently. Did somebody sneak a list of liberal leadership voters to two of these pollsters? I don't know, right? There's a lot of questions there. I'm not questioning their integrity, but I'm questioning that if you're getting paid to run polls, how independent are they if somebody expects a result? And I go back to statistics, and I'm sure you're familiar with statistics. There's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics, and they can be skewed whatever way you want them to.
Okay.
And
but again, to what end? To what end, sir? To what end?
So let's say you want a result that shows the Liberals are more favored than the Conservatives, or the NDP are favored more than the Liberals, or whatever in specific areas or ridings.
Okay.
What's to say that you don't go and poll those individuals? And I'm going to give you an example. If you take a hair salon, this is a university example from my professor from decades ago, but he said if you go to a hair salon and you study the people going in and out of the hair salon between 12 and 3 o'clock, it's all going to be older ladies. So you can assume that hair salon only caters to older ladies. If you go there after 6 o'clock and it's all younger women, then you would assume that it's all younger women that are going to that hair salon. So when were the polls done? What were the parameters around them? And who provided them?
As I understand it, and I'm no mathematician. Grown men cry when I do math, but in the polling industry, they have ways to weight all of this, right?
Oh, and again, I'm not.
People with high school education, people with university degrees, people who live in rural areas. People who don't live in, people who live in urban areas, they could break it down by gender and demographic, all of this stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure that there's weights in there.
But let's take, for example, Angus Reid. Let me finish for a second here, because this keeps coming up. So Angus Reid at the end of December had the Conservatives at 46 and the Liberals at 16. Now the Angus Reid has the Liberals up by 8 points. So how do you explain that? Was Angus Reid in the tank for the Conservatives in late December, but now that it's the end of March, they're in the tank for what? The Liberals?
Are they polling the exact same demographics and the same individuals that they polled before? I don't know, right? If they went back to the exact same people and says, okay, so what's your thoughts now? And they decide, oh, I've changed my mind now. That would be a validity to that poll. But if they say, well, okay, we need to skew this a bit, so let's go to liberal.
Well, why would I come back to it? Why would they say we want to skew this a bit? Like, what's in it for the Angus Reid Institute to say, well, let's skew it a bit?
Like I said, who's funding them? I don't know. Are they the liberal inclined businesses and people? I mean, we have Mark Carney who took his business and ran it to the States before the election.
Could it not have something to do with political factors and the issues of the day?
It could be the
fact that there's a new liberal leader, the fact that maybe the issue used to be the cost of living and the carbon tax, but now something new has come along, and now it's Trump and tariffs.
Oh, and you know what?
Could that not shift the political landscape and voting intentions in the Canadian public?
So the message, I think, with Trump and tariffs is that we're going to get penalized, and unlike Australia, who decided not to tariff anything coming from the States to Australia because they did not want their people to suffer extended costs and that from products coming from the States. Canada chose that we're going to punish everybody in Canada for buying American. And if you go to your pantry, I guarantee you're not going to find more than maybe 2 or 3 items that you use every day or every week that are made in Canada in your pantry. The rest of them are in China. They're going to be in the States.
I guess a little off the topic there, and I don't want to wander too far away. You're suspicious of the polls. Fair enough. It's a very popular answer today. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback on News Radio. What's going on with the politics of the day? Rory up next in Wilmont. Hello, Rory.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Are you a first-time caller, Rory? Are you a first-time caller? Second time. Okay.
I didn't use my first-time caller card yet, so maybe I'll keep it banged.
Okay, good stuff.
I've got a couple of theories, Rob, to your question. First, I just want to say I didn't hear much conspiracy about, conservatives being 20+% in the polls a couple of months ago. And quite honestly, I actually believed those polls at the time. Trudeau was, done and dusted. And to be honest with you, there's a couple of theories that I have. I actually think Pierre Poilievre did too good of a job. He got rid of Trudeau way too early. He was way too effective in eliminating Trudeau. And he has also tanked sellout, quote-unquote, sellout Singh, who is only in it for his pension and who has ridden the coattails of the Liberals for many years. And I think he's done an effective job of also getting rid of him and thus people going to the Liberals. I don't think the Conservatives were prepared for Mark Carney. I think they were thinking Christina Freeland or one of the other, ministers that were in the cabinet. I don't think they're prepared for him. You've got Doug Ford in Ontario, who, yes, is a Conservative, but I believe, Rob, the way things usually go in Ontario is that the opposite happens. If Conservatives get elected provincially, usually it's the Liberals that benefit federally and vice versa. And maybe there's some of that going on. Not to mention Ford saying that Carney was capable and he's too busy to help Poilievre. I wonder if that's damaged him. You've got Danielle Smith in Alberta, a Conservative who is basically going rogue with Trump and Mr. Wonderful down in the States. And then, of course, you've got Trump himself. And then coupled with that, you have Carney, who suggested that he's willing to at least eliminate the consumer tax. That was one of Poilievre's lead go-tos. And also the capital gains tax that they've also suggested that they're going to eliminate. So I feel like the structure that the Conservatives had built has basically crumbled right now, and there's still time, Rob. Now, I know you said that.
Well, it's still close. It's still close, right?
Yeah,
still close. Yeah.
So who knows what happens next week? But Poilievre is losing at least the narrative right now with the security clearance, with Danielle Smith on Breitbart, with all the things that are happening right now. And, he's going to have to pull it together, and he's going to have to do it soon. But I honestly believe he did way too good of a job. He
did too good of a job. A victim of his own success. Hey. Okay, Rory, thank you. Yeah, very thorough there. Very thorough. Thank you. Thank you. I think Rory's analysis is bang on when it comes to the NDP. I mean, surely to goodness, that has to jump out at anyone looking at the polls right now. I mean, the numbers for the NDP, I mean, this is the party that fell out of the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down, like 9%, 8%, 7%, 6%. I mean, nobody really expects the NDP to win the federal election. They've won many elections on the provincial side of things, even in Alberta, for crying out loud. But I mean, 6%, 7%, 9%. That's a party that's looking at wipeout in the last election. I mean, the last time the NDP was polling at a level like this, you have to go back 31 years to 1993, when they had 7% of the vote and won 9 seats. You know, things could always change, but it's pretty bleak if you cheer for the team in orange right now. Emerson is in Calgary. Hi, Emerson. You're on the air. What do you think is going on here?
Here, 2 things. Number one, I think a lot of people are dishonest when they get these polls. My brother is one of them. He lives in Toronto. He was bragging about how he fooled the pollster. He says, "Oh yeah, I'm voting Liberal." He says, but he's a conservative. He goes, "Yeah, I'm not going to tell him my business." So there's that going on. Also, I think people want to scare the conservatives, people, get their base out to vote because, you know, people take it for granted. People have been taking the conservatives to be elected for granted. So I think they want to motivate people to say, hey, man, we got to do something. We got to get our base fired up here. This doesn't look good. What I'm really concerned about is I think this is what's going to happen. I think during the debate, Poilievre has got something up his sleeve. One thing I hope he asks is, Carney, if you're so concerned about taking on Trump, you're the prime minister. I'm not. Why are you not on that phone with Trump and saying, hey, buddy, I'm the prime minister of Canada. We need to sit down and talk. He says, oh, I haven't called Trump yet. I'll do it on my terms. I'm waiting for Trump to acknowledge this.
Well, another story that wasn't accurate. They reached out to Trump and they've never heard back from him is the story there, according to the Wall Street Journal.
But, Rob, they can say that. They can say, oh, Trump never called us back. Number one, Trump wants them to win, according to what he said with Laura Ingraham. Oh, I want a Liberal government. They're easier to work with. If I heard Trump say that, I would go the other way because Trump, he wants to mulch this country up. And if he thinks Carney, for example, who has taken business to the States, I don't see this being a slam dunk for the Liberals. I think he has peaked way too early, and I believe the Conservatives have nowhere to go but up. And I'm still predicting a Conservative victory. I do believe it's going to happen. It happened here in Alberta. It happened here in Alberta.
All right, Emerson, we got to run. We're tight on time. Got to run. Thank you. All right, let's get right back to the phones. Time is tight here. We have a full hour ahead, hour number 2 of Talkback right after the news. If you're on the line, stay on the line. We can get you on the air after the news. Why are the Liberals in the lead according to most of the polls? Why are the Conservatives not? NDP vote seems to have collapsed here. What's going on with this election campaign 3 days into it? 1-833-668-2577. Bernie in Mississauga. Hello, Bernie.
Yeah, hi, Rob. I just think
Bernie.
With the Conservatives' fortune hanging on what happens to the NDP, and I think the NDP should be about 18% in the polls. So there's 12 points that could have went to the NDP and would have taken away from the Liberals. So the Liberals right now are eating the NDP lunch, and I don't know what the reason is for. I think it's because Carney. I think the people are running scared because of Donald Trump. But the debates are coming up, and we'll see what happens in the debates. If the NDP can pick up its vote, I think there'll be a lot tighter election.
Okay, yeah. So you think a lot of this is because of the weakness in the NDP right now? I'm with you on that, Bernie. I think you're right on there. Yeah.
And I don't know why. Well, I think it's just a virus going around.
A virus. Okay. All right. Okay, Mike. Let's go to Mike in Sylvan Lake. Hi, Mike. You're on the air, Mike.
Hey there. Mike. My thought was that the polls have been rushed a little bit because of the election, and the people that work at the polls are just like everybody else. They work normal hours. So, and the biggest voting demographic in Canada actually is at work, and it's harder to reach during working hours when the polls are running. So, I mean, the people that are being accessed and talked to easily during those hours are people that benefit from social programs and are more likely to vote Liberal.
Okay, so you're someone who thinks they're skewed then.
Not skewed on purpose, not because
Not
of a
skewed on
conspiracy,
purpose.
Just because it's been rushed and easily, because it's easier to get a hold of people that aren't working when they're trying to ramp up the polls.
Okay, but what about a year ago when the Conservatives had a big lead in the spring of last year?
Wasn't a looming election, so they could call
Wasn't
people,
an election.
wait for them to call people back, things
I
like that.
see.
Everyone's gotten the calls. Hey, could you call me back later or whatever in the evening or with polls?
You think they've got to pump out the material to, kind of feed the beast, if you will, and maybe they're not doing as thorough a job, perhaps. Okay,
Correct.
Not something I had considered, Mike, but if that's what's on your mind on the topic today, I appreciate you sharing it. Thank you for all your calls in hour number 1. Hour number 2 is coming up of Talkback right after the latest breaking news here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
We are now 3 days into the election campaign. Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. Most of the polls say the Liberals are winning this thing, and the Conservatives are losing this thing, and the New Democrats are really losing it. Why is this the case? What is your explanation for the state of the race as it stands right now? Of course, polls are just snapshots in time, could always change. 1-833-668-2577. Dan is up next in Calgary. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, Dan. Thanks. What are your thoughts here?
Enjoy your show always.
I appreciate that. Very kind.
Thank you. And, although the polls are polls, real polls are on the polling day, but, I believe there are 3 reasons Liberals are up. The first, Pierre Poilievre start attacking both Justin and Mr. Singh at the same time.
Okay.
And although the Singh was not in his competition. So now the majority, the disappointed NDPers leaning towards Liberals. We noticed that.
Interesting.
Right?
Yes.
And secondly, obviously, the south of the border, Mr. Trump is the reason. And the third reason is people are more trusting Carney's resume than Pierre Poilievre.
Good point. Yeah.
And as long as most of people are disagree with this polls, but the same polling company were giving 26% lead to Conservative a few months back.
Just 3 months ago, yeah.
Yeah, so how come if these are fake, then how come those were correct?
Good question. Good question, right? Sir. Yeah, good question.
It's just our opinion that those were right because those were Conservative leading. Now they are fake and manipulative because these now Liberals are leading.
Right. Okay.
Well, polling company do their best, whatever the procedure they follow, but I believe it will be a tough race.
Tough race. Yeah. Maybe too close to call right now. Maybe even.
And that's the way it should be actually. If somebody just getting absolute majority, that's not good for the democracy.
Okay, Dan. Thank you for your contribution to our show today, Dan. Yeah. Khalil still with us in Calgary.
Yes.
Khalil? Yes. Hello.
Sir. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good.
Yeah,
Hi,
I'm really
Khalil.
enjoying your show. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
So my opinion is because all the people are using conspiracy theories. I think it's not true. The reason is because the liberal were so low for so many months, and so those were the same news agencies and everything else. They were telling the truth to the public, whatever is happening. So I think the numbers are actually true at this point. So Liberals are going up. The reason is there are 3 major reasons.
Okay.
Because when the public sentiment is there, and the political party is not making a firm, like a strategy on that. So, for example, the U.S.-Canada tension was there. There was a huge public sentiment, and I think at that time the Liberals really cashed it well. The other major issue is that, Mr. Carney, actually, they couldn't make a good strategy. The reason is because Mr. Carney is equally respectable on both sides. The reason is during 2008 and 13, if you remember, Mr. Stephen Harper appointed him as a governor for Bank of Canada.
Yes, he did.
And then later he actually, served on top position as a technocrat. So technocrats, is being respected on both sides. So I think they couldn't make a good strategy against him because they were, I think, were just underestimated on that thing.
Okay.
And the last point, very important, is how the parties, they make their strategy about nomination process. So I think, without mentioning the name, I just wanted to let you know that, the nomination process was not according to the so-called high standard of the democracy. It's based on the favoritism and also ignoring some certain communities, which they felt not inclusive into that process with the one party. And that is also a major effect because on many, many ratings, actually, I studied that, the sentiment about the voters means the voters are not happy about the nomination. So I think those are the things actually affected a lot too, and that's the magically all the numbers have been changed during this short period of time.
Okay,
in the
thank
favor
you.
Of liberals. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Very interesting thoughts there. Rick in Dartmouth, where Mark Carney was in your neck of the woods today, as a matter of fact. Rick, go ahead. Hi.
Yeah, Rob, you got to stop taking vacations. We missed you.
We did a quick spring break, and we would like to thank everyone for holding off on the election until we got back.
We did. Look, what I'd like to talk about, and I think I kind of touched on this before, regarding polls. The information that's not given in polls anymore by the media is crucial information. And it works like this. Depending on the number of participants in any poll, you have a margin of error. And if it's 2,000 or less, the margin of error is 3 to 4 points, and it's 19 times out of 20. Okay, so it always has the 3 to 4 point margin of error. But the 19 times out of 20, the 20th time, or 5%, is an outlier, okay?
Yeah.
So, in particular, the current polling doesn't mention, okay, whether, in most cases, whether it's an online survey, which has no margin of error because it's not even a poll, all right? It's an online survey. It's not a poll. Poll has to be random. And then you have the randomness of the polls, which is an issue. And we've participated in polls before, and what ends up happening when you participate in a phone poll? They call you back. So if they keep calling us back for our opinions, it's going to slant the poll. So in this particular case, I'll give it to you right now that it was Trump that caused the bump in the Liberals for sure. And Carney, distancing himself ridiculously from Trudeau is the other thing. But I also have another thing. I'll just wrap with this. I have under 2,000 Facebook friends, but they're from all political stripes. And what I see is a constant comparison of Poilievre to Trump, and then I see constant comparison of Trump to Hitler and Elon Musk to Hitler, which is, it's absurd. Elon Musk was the darling of the left with all his, Tesla and SpaceX and all the other things he's done. So that analogy to me, and the Save Canada. I mean, we can blame Trump exactly for this. He made gross error, but he loathes, as Ian Lee says, he loathed Trudeau for the backstabbing that Trudeau did in in Trump's first term. So Carney's not going to be any different. And if the Liberals win, we're going to have a way harder time with Trump. I guarantee you that.
Okay. Well, we'll see how it all plays out. Thank you for your thoughts. Have to stop here. And let's go to Eric is in Halifax. Hello, Eric.
Hey, don't you ever go away again. I was lost without you guys.
That's very kind of you.
I'll tell you, I went crazy. I went crazy for a whole week or so, and I said, "Holy jeez, what the hell's going on?" He didn't.
Well, that's why we came back to talk some sense into you.
Like Rick says, I'm glad you're back. I'm going to tell you why the Liberals are sitting high.
All right, I love to hear.
The captain of the ship. No, don't say "oh dare." This is the truth. Nobody has said it. The captain of the ship now, his last name is Carney. It's not Trudeau. If Trudeau was still at the helm of the ship, they'd be so far behind they couldn't see daylight.
Yeah.
And also, the PC guy, all he's saying, because Carney stole his carbon tax ammunition he had, and now he says, bring it on home. I asked Andrea, and I'm going to ask you, what does the PC guy mean by bringing on home? Can you explain that to me, why he's using that as a crutch?
Bring it home. What does bring it home mean? I suppose if it works at all, it works because it can mean whatever you want it to mean. Bring home better jobs. Bring home bigger paychecks. Bring home more affordable rents. Bring home more affordable homes. Whatever, right? Could be whatever you want it to be. It's whatever you want it to be, I guess.
Yeah, but I'm going to stop you there. He's going to take the GST and he's going to put it to affordable housing or rents. All he's going to do is take the GST and put that money toward housing for the rich and famous. He ain't worried about the little guy. What I read between the lines is the fact that he's going to look out for the big people that can afford rents, not the people that can't afford it.
If that's the case, it's interesting that you would say that, because I know you've been a working class guy. You've had a lot of tough jobs in your life. You've talked about that. Then if that's the case, if he's only in it for the rich, why would he get the endorsement of the union that represents 60,000 members of the Boilermakers?
Okay, then I can't touch that one because I'm worried about rent.
Isn't that interesting? Like, why aren't they? Normally they would endorse a like a working class party like the Democrats. They're not. And they're not, and they're not endorsing the Liberals, led by a super rich guy. They're endorsing the Conservatives, right?
Yeah, but his name is
the
Carney,
Boilermakers are the ones doing the tough jobs on all the construction sites.
Well, I'm going to wait about 6 months.
Okay.
I'm not going to say I'm not going to call you in 6 months, but I'm going to wait for 6 months and see what happens, and then we'll go from there. But right now, the main reason why they're sitting high is because one guy's named Carney and the other fellow that went to the wayside was Trudeau, and that's the only reason why they're sitting high.
Yeah, the change at the top. Yeah, it's a fair analysis, Eric, and I don't discount that. Thank you. We're around for the long haul now. We're not taking any time off, and we might get the Easter long weekend, I guess. That'd be about it. Jody in Calgary, you're up next. Jody, hi there.
Yeah.
Hi, Jody.
My opinion is like the reason why the Liberals are, and no, I do, and I do believe in the polls to some extent.
Okay.
But I really think the reason why the Liberals are back in the lead is because they're getting the NDP people now.
Oh yeah.
Because Jay Ming Singh, like he basically is gone. Like I mean he's, like, sorry to say this, but he's a clown. So people are starting to the NDP audience or people are starting to see through him. Like, how wishy-washy he is and all that stuff, and he says the same thing over and over. So I really think that he might lose his seat in the next election. Like, he might be gone.
Oh yeah, I think you're. Yeah, I think you're onto it there. Yeah, out in Burnaby, he's in tough.
That would be a really great thing for me because, like I said, I think he's a clown. But in your opinion, do you think the Liberals are going to get a majority or a minority?
Well, again, I come back to this 2021 election. They get barely 33% of the vote. They won a minority government. They got even less percent of the vote in the election before in 2019, 32 point something % of the vote, and they won a minority government. I mean, if they're at 35, 36% support, they win at least a minority government. You would think.
Yeah, they'll get a
when
minority.
They won, when Trudeau won his one and only majority government, they were at 39.
39. Okay.
Back in
So
2015. But some of these polls have, like Main Street has the Liberals at 44.
Ooh.
Angus Reid has the Liberals at 46. I mean, if
that's a majority.
I don't know. Who knows what the polls will say next week? Leger, Liberals 44. Like that is slam dunk conservative, slam dunk Liberal majority government. Slam dunk.
But I think it's going to come down to the debates because
the
I know
debates.
Carney is he's not very good in French, and I mean I'm not saying that's going to like hurt him bad, but I mean we'll see how good he is as a debater.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jody. Good to hear from you. Yep. It's Talkback here on News Radio. The election, day 3 of the election campaign. Talking about the polls. Very, very interesting how they've evolved over the last few weeks and months. This is News Radio. 3 days into the election campaign, only 34 days to go. Most of the polls say the Liberals are in the lead, Conservatives not in the lead. It's bleak for the New Democrats right now. What is your explanation for the state of the race? 1-833-668-2577. Lots of time to fit you in. Wade in Nova Scotia up next. Hi, Wade.
Good day, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good. Wade, what's up?
Okay, I just thought I'd call and give some thoughts on polling.
Sure.
I think it should be pretty obvious why the Liberals gained so much in the polls, because people are voting, I think, mainly against Donald Trump. He's not on the ballot directly, but I guess some people think that he is. And I think it's out of anger more than really using their common sense here, if I may say so.
Fair enough,
now, okay. I'm just going to throw a scenario at you.
Okay.
Okay, we got a guy down in the States who wants to steal our companies. What is he offering? He's offering low taxes, deregulation, anything. That's what companies are looking for. And what would Mark Carney do to our business? He wants to put a carbon tax on business now, on companies.
Well, there is one on big emitters already. He wants to raise it.
Yeah, well, that's bad enough, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So if you were running the company, you was gonna get hit with this double, triple tax, who knows how high he'll go with it, and you could move your company to the States and get 15% tax, deregulation, and a business fund president, and plus he's going to tariff our fossil fuel industry in the ground. And I called you here a few weeks ago, and what I think is going to happen, because I've been watching a lot of videos on Daniel Smith. Now, they will not put up with this anymore, and they could either separate from Canada along with possibly Saskatchewan. Now, they could either join the U.S., a much friendlier administration. The gun issues, Carney and the Liberals are going to come after people's guns, and I'm a law-abiding gun owner. I have been. I'm almost 70, and I've owned a gun since I've been 14, and I haven't shot anybody yet. So when they come after your guns, the law-abiding citizens, which they will do, and I cannot believe I'm trying to, how can I say it? I'm trying to look out for the best here, but I cannot believe my fellow Canadians would be that stupid, if I may say so, that would vote the Liberals back in after what they've done for 9 or 10 years.
Okay.
I mean, I can't fathom it. I mean, I can't.
All right. Fathom it. Okay. We'll see. Thank you. But you think it's driven by the emotions about Trump is what's driving it right now?
I think a lot of it is, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Wade. Yeah. Thank you, Wade. Okay, we want to fit in some more people. Paul in Cambridge up next on Talkback. Hi, Paul.
Hi, I can give you the answer in 2 words.
Oh, okay. All right.
Frank Graves.
Frank Graves. Okay.
Yeah, these polling companies, what do in the off season when there's no elections going on? They do market research and they develop polls in order to help businesses get ahead. Okay, so there's no election on. They push all these other polls, and the polls, if you're going to try and sell the results of your polls to somebody, you got to have the results that the customer wants to hear. So they tailor their questions, they tailor their who they survey and whatnot.
Yeah.
They tailor it to get the results that the customer wants. Now, Frank Graves has made it very clear that he will do anything.
Well, that's one pollster. That's one polling firm. Okay. You're talking about the head of Ecos, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, but Frank Graves doesn't run Angus Reid. Frank Graves doesn't run Leger. Frank Graves doesn't run Main Street. And all of these have the Liberals at 40+% right now.
Okay.
Right?
No,
Frank Graves doesn't run Abacus Data, for example.
No, he doesn't run these ones, but he has a major influence. And if he's going to say that,
I doubt that.
The Liberals are going to win by X number of points, all these other companies, they're not going to get any profit from it if they all go against him. So they're just going to go along with the crowd. And regardless what
They're going along with the crowd. Okay. Going along with the crowd.
There is nobody, including all these pollsters, that isn't biased in one way or another. They say that they aren't.
So you don't believe the polls. Did you believe the polls when did you believe the polls when the Conservatives were up by 20 points?
No.
You didn't? Oh, okay.
No,
all right.
There's only one poll that I believe in, and that's going to be later on in April. That's the only poll that counts, the only poll that matters.
But the last time we talked about polls, you said, well, the only one I watch is 338.
I watched 338 on the basis that
because that's an aggregate of all the polls, and today it's it has the Liberals by 4 points.
Right. Okay.
Right.
But polls are so easily skewed.
So now you don't believe 338, and the only poll that matters is Election Day. So your story is changing week by week here, Paul.
No, if you let me.
Okay.
At least when you look at 338, it gives an aggregate. And you can also look at individual ridings, and you can look at the sources. And, it's like when you're doing a statistical analysis, you throw out the flyers, okay? And then you get more or less what you should get is a bell curve. But instead, we're getting a straight line straight across, just like Carney's results in the election, a straight line right across the top.
Okay.
It's so
I'll tell you what,
a
public opinion research firm that was doing work on behalf of clients that was producing skewed results. What if that damaged the business outcome of the client? What if the polling firm said, our advice to you, client A, would be that you do this with your product, or you pitch your product and that turns out to be a total flop. A firm like that wouldn't be in business very long, would it?
No, but when you're doing a poll,
come on.
You have to look at the results that you want to achieve, and it could be hey, here's a nice simple poll that no matter how you answer, you're wrong. Have you stopped beating your wife yet?
Okay, but they're not asking.
Yes,
they're not asking, have you stopped beating your wife? They're not asking if you stopped beating your wife. What a red herring that is. They're asking if the election was today, who would you vote for? Which is a lot different question than. Oh, come on, Paul. Usually you make a lot of sense, but today is not one of those days, unfortunately. But you call back any day. There's room for improvement. 1-833-668-2577. It's Talkback on News Radio. Tom in Cambridge, you're up next, Tom.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Tom. What do you think is going on?
Pierre, all he did was attack the carbon tax. And, he was yelling first, then he changed from the glasses to the other ones, so he doesn't have the glasses anymore to make him look prime ministerial. The other thing is, with saying he completely destroyed the NDP, so he should be out because he didn't stand up for the working people. He didn't stand up against the big companies, banks, the insurance companies. So now Carney comes and he looks more prime ministerial than all these others. So,
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Joe in Kitchener up next. Joe.
Yeah, Rob, if I may address your brief but informative diatribe before the second last break. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Jagoff Singh has the IQ of a driveway. I mean, he's as sharp as a basketball. You said it. You called it out. And he had every opportunity to bury Trudeau and the Liberals, but he didn't do it. But, hey, how's that pension working for you, buddy?
Well,
no, but, hey, he looks real tough when he's beating up a bag on TV for a commercial, beating up a heavy bag. May I reference one of my favorite lines from one of my favorite mixed martial arts movies? Bag, don't hit back. Okay, buddy.
Okay. All right.
Come on. He had every opportunity to bury the Liberals, and now he's the last thing standing that people remember tied to Trudeau. Good on you, buddy. Way to go, Jagoff. Good for you. Cheers.
Okay. All right, Joe. Well, I'll tell you, I mean, just if you think about this, bigger picture, maybe it sounds counterintuitive, but if you're a supporter of the Conservative Party, this is the last thing you need to see is the NDP in single digits in popular support. Because that's probably going to mean that a lot of NDP support is migrating to the Liberals and not to the Conservatives. That's what we're seeing. Back in the Harper days, we used to call this the non-Harper universe. The Conservatives had this rock-solid base. It's about a third of the electorate. The Conservatives, if they have any hope of winning, want to get that up to 37, 38%. But then what else they need to happen is they want all those other progressive parties on the left to split the leftovers. And you want the NDP and the Liberals and the Bloc and the Green. Let them fight for the other 62, 65% of the vote. And the more splitting, the better for you, the team in blue. You want a strong NDP. You want an NDP at 20% of the polls. You don't need them at 30, but you want the NDP at 20% in the polls. I mean, it's no good for the team in blue if the team in orange is facing oblivion on election night, and that's what they're looking at right now. Marty is in Calgary. Hi, Marty.
Hello. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Marty. I'm good. Yeah. What do you make of it all?
Well, it's pretty simple.
Okay.
3 months ago, you said, pretty sure 3 months ago, you said there was a 26-point lead for the Conservatives.
Yeah, sure.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. 3 months ago, Donald Trump got voted into office.
Yeah.
Ever since then, the polls have been dropping, and it's even been dropping more drastically ever since, the garbage he's been doing. Pierre Poilievre has been mirroring Trump for the last 3 years. That's precisely why this is happening. There's a concerted effort in the left to stop splitting the vote and get rid of Poilievre for good.
Get rid of him for good because he's too Trumpy. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Too far to the right.
Too far to the right.
The party has to pull back to their traditional role as a fiscal conservative, not a social conservative.
Okay, but what do you think about the Poilievre-led Conservative Party makes it less of a fiscally conservative party, more of a socially conservative party? They're not talking a lot about social issues. They're talking almost exclusively about economic issues. Jobs, housing, inflation, these sorts of things. I don't hear them talking about, they're not talking about abortion. They're not talking about same-sex marriage. If they're talking about, they're talking about social issues. Yeah. I mean, if they're talking about social issues, they're talking about getting tougher on crime. That would be a social issue.
Votes in the House for abortion. It's just been voted down every time.
In private members' legislation, but no party leader has the power to stop the introduction of private members' business, sir. That's just how it works in the parliamentary system.
I'm aware of that.
Okay.
But again, all conservatives voted for it rather than against it. And then you got Daniel
all conservatives
Smith,
voted for what? All conservatives voted for what? All conservatives voted for what?
For the abortion.
All conservatives voted for abortion. There hasn't been any vote on abortion.
Yes, there has.
No, there
I
hasn't.
think free.
There hasn't been any vote on abortion. And the fact is, the abortion law in this country is there's no law. There is no law. And there hasn't been a law about abortion since 1968. The last government to try was the Mulroney government. It passed through the House of Commons. It went to the Senate, and it lost in the Senate only because it was a tie. That was the last government to even try, and no government has even tried. And you're inaccurate. And I'll debate you on what has happened in Parliament, because I can cite you chapter and verse on it, sir. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback on News Radio. John in Calgary up next on a busy Talkback today. Hello, John.
Hey, Rob. How are you doing today?
I'm good today, John. Yeah. Just taking it all in, sir. Wondering how it's all going to play it.
There's a lot to take in.
Yeah, sure thing.
So, this is my opinion as I see things. I've lived in multiple countries. I've lived in almost every province. I've lived in a couple states. I've talked to you before about it. There's no political party that's going to solve your problems or any of that stuff. It's you that's got to solve your problems. I'm more liberal leaning, and you're more conservative leaning. But the nice thing is that we can have a conversation. We can both sit here and talk, and that's how it should be. I think the problem what's happening for the conservatives is that Donald Trump is a divisive person, and that's his style. And Polyev is the same. He creates this divisiveness, and he's talking like the problems, and he talks to the anger of people. It's the same thing that happened in the U.S. Trump talked to the anger and brought up all this fervor and got people riled up. Information didn't really matter because no matter what you told them, they had different information because they found it on Facebook or whatever. And everybody's looking at this and saying, like, okay, here's a mirror of what's happening right now in Canada, and look at what it did. You have all these angry people that voted in Trump, and now you have all these problems that are occurring in the U.S. And here we have Polyev, who took a very similar line and, ramped up the anger and got all those people really angry. So when Trudeau stepped away, the anger kind of subsided, but you still have all these people that are conservatives that are just angry, and they talk is the anger, and you try to talk to them, and you're like, okay, so why are you voting this way? And they tell you, the polls lie and all this stuff, and you're like, well, okay, wait, you're not giving me any information. You're just angry. Like why? I'm trying to understand. Okay. I don't understand fully. So people are backing away from it because they're like, oh, wait. You kind of got this, just this angry vibe about you, and you're portraying this angry vibe. And the people that are, the staunchest supporters of you don't base things on information. They base it upon, their pseudo-facts. And you're, talking about...
Okay. Gotcha. They're playing the music. We're winding things down here. I really appreciate your contribution to our show today, as well as all the other callers. It was very busy. I really appreciate all your opinions. It's going to be a heck of a few weeks ahead for all of us. I hope you'll be part of the discussion. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.